business is very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. So the parts of a business, when you boil it down, there's really like 3 or 4 moving parts. And if you can nail those parts and get them in alignment, everything comes together. If one of those parts is out of alignment, then that can slow all the other pieces down.
So joining me on the line today, I've got Damien Elsing from Click Digital. Welcome to the call, Damien.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
So maybe tell us a bit about what Click Digital is all about.
We're a digital marketing agency, and we've been up and running for about 7 years now. And we do content marketing predominantly, I'd say, and we help small businesses to get more leads and nurture them using content, build trust. And we particularly work with companies with expensive products and services, so long buying cycle. There needs a lot of nurturing of the leads and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Because when we talk about marketing to companies, we talk about the 3 levels. You've got the lead generation, the lead nurturing, and the conversion.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I think some markets really do have a long gestation period. So having a lead nurturing system is sort of required to build that trust, but it's one of those very difficult things to measure and track. So tell me, what makes you sort of unique or different in that marketplace?
I think it is the fact that we only work with those sort of companies that have the longer buying cycle. And because my background is content and copywriting, we've sort of grown the team in that direction, and we focus on delivering the right kind of messages at the right where the person is. So instead of just saying buy now all the time and buy our stuff and here's a special, it's more about education. And we're saying to them, so we help companies figure out what are the questions that your market has. Do they want to know about buying, making purchase guides and things like that? It's not just all about cutting the price and trying to get those selling messages across. So that's where our focus really is.
Understand. So how did, because when it comes to this kind of marketing, I suppose the results are a bit less dollars driven and then more engagement, right?
Yeah.
How does a company sort of measure performance on a program like that?
What we typically measure, so instead of just, you're right, so it is hard to measure the ROI because it is, especially when it's a longer buying cycle. So what we often do is we break the life cycle of a lead into different stages. So instead of just saying here's a non-customer and here's a customer, we break them down into, it might be subscriber and then a marketing qualified lead, which just means they've put their hand up and they're ready to receive marketing messages. And then we move them up to a sales qualified lead, which might be if they've actually filled in a quoting form or sent an email or called the office. And then that's the sales team or the company can then say, yes, we can work with them, or no, we can't. And they move up that ladder, and then there's opportunity and customer. So we can actually see how people are moving through those cycles, and we can set KPIs around those stages rather than just did they buy or not. But over the long term, we can also say, over a 12-month period or something, we can demonstrate the ROI there.
Right. So you can really track, from a new lead right through the nurturing process to the sale itself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with modern marketing tools now, you can track everything. So you can see where they came from, what sources are bringing the most flow through those different stages I mentioned. So is it paid traffic? Is it organic, social? And you can figure out where to put more of that marketing attention.
Yeah. Gotcha. So what made you get into this area of marketing? Because it's quite specific.
Well, as I said, I started out with copywriting, and that was always sort of my passion is creating the content and, writing those sort of sales messages and marketing messages. So, and then got in with HubSpot. We became HubSpot partners kind of at the start of this journey about 7 years ago now. And HubSpot really transformed the marketplace because they were all about, create the content that your customers want to read about. Everyone else was saying, just run ads and get them to buy. But HubSpot was saying, and they're still saying that today, you need this life cycle, you need life cycle marketing. So, and that resonated well with my strength, which was creating content. And so just being able to do that at those different stages of the buying journey was a good match.
Yeah. And so which markets are you serving at the moment?
We have traditionally served construction. So simply because we had a really good case study there. That was our first client was a home builder. We really knocked it out of the park with them because it was just a really good opportunity in terms of their market. No one else was talking about those things that we've been discussing here. And so when they started doing that, they really boomed. And so we created a case study out of that and leveraged that to try and get more clients in that industry, and it worked.
Yep.
But then the last couple of years, we've discovered that the construction industry is really booming. So they don't need a lot of marketing help. So those marketing messages, they're sort of coming back and saying, look, we're booked out for 3-4 years in advance. The last thing we need is marketing. So we're in the process now, sort of figuring out what's the next kind of market we can serve, who has the need, where does it fit? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I suppose it's interesting because what you've just talked about is a life cycle. And a lot of people in business, sometimes it's funny, they think they're great at business, but they were just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
When things go south, they say, oh my God, we never used to have to market. And now all of a sudden we do. What happened? And you go, well, industries go through ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
and I think what you described is true. It's interesting. The construction industry right now is off the charts.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable either, but it's certainly giving them work for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So then as a business owner, you know, one of the tenets of being a business owner is that you make money when you add value. And if people say you're redundant, we don't need you anymore, trying to find money in a market like that becomes super difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there is a question, and we I know we talked about this just before this interview, is you know, sometimes you have to look at your business and say, is that market still current? Is it still valid? Is it growing, or is it contracting?
Yep.
Because if it's contracting, is there something I can do to be unique and to sort of trump everyone else? We have a similar situation. We've been in business coaching for 20 years. And when we started, the most asked question was, what is a business coach?
Yep.
Now the most heard comment is not another business coach. And it's absolutely commoditized, right? And it's sort of, we've gone through a similar iteration going, okay, well, now that there's so many people that are in this field, how do we what's our point of difference? Who's our niche? What's our market? How do we get heard? Yep. And so it's almost like a cyclic process with a marketing structure. So when you look for an alternative market, what sort of things are you looking for?
Well, companies that are struggling to generate their own, you know, lead flow is the number one thing, because that's obviously where marketing is its big strength. But by the same token, you know, every market has a need. So going back to that example of construction, even though they don't need marketing right now, they might need help dealing with all of those inquiries. And that's another thing. So we can either pivot and say, well, we can help you with, you know, systems to help nurture those leads and do those sort of things and just manage them and sort them. Or we can sort of just find another market. So it's sort of the challenge at the moment. And I think just testing, being able to just pivot quite easily and test a new market as well. And that's sort of what we're doing at the moment. We're testing recruitment, tried sort of retirement, just places where we've got some experience, we've had some results, because that's what it's all about, is showing you can achieve this result, solve this problem, and then leveraging that up into more sort of examples of that.
So when you talk about testing, you're sort of, you're meaning like putting some sort of marketing campaign together and seeing whether you get clicks or results?
Exactly. Yeah. So putting together a campaign, it could just be a direct mail, like direct outreach campaign. It could be an ad campaign. So ads ads are sort of secondary for us, because ads are kind of expensive to get up and running to test. So to test a market, so when I'm testing a market, I'll often do just some cold outreach, you know, just emailing people in that industry and saying, hey, this is the problem we solved. Do you have this problem right now? If so, let's explore this further. And that's a pretty quick way to get some feedback and see what the market's experiencing.
Yeah, fantastic. So you talked about one of your superpowers being a copywriter, right?
Yep.
Do you have any, like as an organization, do you feel there's any strengths above and beyond copywriting that you offer as well?
I guess just understanding that buying journey and where all the different pieces of content fit into that. So to us, you know, when we talk about blogs and landing pages and stuff like that, it's sort of second nature. And often when I'm talking to business owners, they're sort of like, you know, explain to me what is a blog and where does it sit, and sort of having to go back to square one and explain those things to them. So I think one of our strengths is helping the businesses understand you'll need these elements, these sort of assets at each stage, and this is how they fit together and how they work. And we've got all sorts of, you know, diagrams and things like that of how it all fits together. And when that resonates with the client, they sort of say, oh, I get that now, and I see how this all fits together and what we need.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you've been going for 7 years. What do you consider to be the best piece of advice you've ever received in business?
That's a good one. Probably, have to think about that. It's actually it's one of those things. Business is very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. So the parts of a business, when you boil it down, there's really like 3 or 4 moving parts. And if you can nail those parts and get them in alignment, everything comes together. If one of those parts is out of alignment, then that can slow all the other pieces down. So I guess to put it in a nutshell, it's very simple. It's easy to get clarity on it, but it doesn't mean it's easy to get those things.
Yeah. I think you're right. Often people, whenever you look at any complex task, if you boil it down to its simplest components, it's super simple.
Yep.
But it does require you to, I suppose, be able to go from a top level view, like an aeroplane view, right down to a middle view, right down to a worm's eye view.
Yep.
And identify the moving component that's not working.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people obsess about all the details and, it's my logo and my website. I heard an interview with a guy the other day who built a gym. He helped gym owners and he'd grown this $100 million business. He said they didn't even have a website till they were doing $30 million in sales. And they said, we better have a website. So it's just like take action, get it, test it and get it happening and then worry about the logo and the details later. Yeah.
So you mentioned an interesting point because there is so many moving parts. Like how does a business owner decide what to work on next? And I think, part of it is to look at what's working and look at where you can see that there's a problem and then just tune in on that problem because everyone needs a website.
Yep.
A generic statement, right? But if I'm so busy, like if I'm in construction, I don't need a website.
Yeah.
That's not what I need. What I need now is more employees. So if you can help me with recruitment, then I'm happy to talk to you. But talking to me about websites right now doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you read any business books or do you follow any podcasts or any of the?
I mainly listen to really nerdy technical podcasts, about ads and email marketing and stuff like that. I love Tim Ferriss. I've read lots of Tim Ferriss's books. I like his podcast and his attitude. What else have I read lately? I've been going back to the old school stuff. Ready, Fire, Aim. It's a really good book. I forget who wrote it now. I think it's Michael. I forget, but yeah.
It's an old one. I can't remember the title.
And that's actually goes back to what we were just talking about, Ready, Fire, Aim. So it's saying don't get everything perfect before you take action. Take action and then iterate on it later, things like that. So
yeah. I think like for business people, I think people say, what should I do next? And I say, well, it doesn't matter. Do something.
Do something. Yeah, take action.
Take action because you can't steer a parked car. So asking for direction when you're not moving is quite difficult.
Yeah.
And once you're moving, then we can work out what's working and what's not working. And then it becomes almost simple because you just say, well, what's broken? And then yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So let me ask you one last question, advice to people in business right now. So obviously with the economy going through quite a dramatic shift in the past few years, where do you see like the opportunity for people in business right now? What would be your advice to someone in business?
I think part of what the pandemic and everything has brought to us is that ability, everyone can work from home now, everyone can do this. And we've got these tools now that have always existed. We've only just started using them. And what I don't see businesses doing enough is like leveraging remote workforces, whether they're overseas or local, but just using that. You don't have to hire someone around the corner to help you with, your bookkeeping or something like that. You can hire someone in another state, another country, whatever it might be. So I think just taking advantage of that global economy and because that really frees up the business owner to focus on things and they can be paying someone, $5 or $10 an hour to do the stuff that they don't want to do. So I think that's probably the biggest shift that's going to be happening over the next little while.
Yeah. And I think you're right, because as people demand to be able to work from home, I don't think they realize the consequence of their action. Which is saying, well, Damien, you need to build your business so I can work from home. You go, yeah, no problem. Now that you can work from home, you can work from anywhere. And they go, yeah, I can work from anywhere. Which means now you're competing on a global market for being able to work. So you're competing with the people in the Philippines, the people in every country in the world.
Exactly. So you better be able to do something that they can't, whether it's, creative or something in those realms.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, really interesting insights today, Damien. So thanks so much for sharing some of your thoughts about what it takes to what you're doing in your business, and I suppose some of the things that are going on for you as well. So really appreciate your time.
No worries, Dave. It's been a pleasure.